Doon 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 da 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 do da do da day. Boom boom. This is Skylar Stone. I'm Mike from the Hostel franchise. Hostel 3. That's the one that went straight to DVD, but it still counts. Boom, boom. You're listening to the Don't Go Out There podcast. Boom, boom. Take my breath away. Boom, boom, boom. I have a lot more chest hair than when I did that movie. I put on a little weight too. Got a double neck. What am I, Johnny Depp right now with all these bracelets? What's going on? Anyway, you're listening to the Don't Go Out There podcast. Don't go out there, guys.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. Really appreciate all of your support. You guys are awesome. Before we get into tonight's film review, I just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgoouthere.com. Brian's done a fantastic job designing it and, just the design, the breakdown. And we got all of our episodes and interviews on there. If you want to listen, like we've said many times in the previous weeks, if you want to check out any of our old interviews with these horror legends that we've had on the show, definitely check out the website. It's a lot easier to find them there. We also have our store if you want to pick up a new t-shirt or any other apparel that we have. And we also have Shan's Etsy page attached if you want to grab a tumbler. Those have been selling like hotcakes. Definitely check that out. And we also have our celebrity shout outs in our blog if you ever want to read any of our think pieces. And the last thing we'll shout out before we get into the film review is we have a Patreon that we call Blood Donors. We have two different kinds. We have a one-time donation. Maybe you're a big fan of a movie and you want us to review it. We have that option available. And we also have the traditional monthly recurring kind. We can't stress enough how we recognize how tough times are economically for everyone right now. So any financial support we get, we greatly appreciate it. It takes a huge burden off of us. And it does not go into any of our pockets. It goes directly back into the podcast to make this the best listening experience that you can have. So we really appreciate that. Let's get into the film review. This is our third entry in Mike's 2000s theme month. We got a lot of good feedback, Mike, on your theme pick. So big shout out to Mike. Tonight's my pick. I chose 2005's Hostel. I kind of took a little trick from Mike's book tonight because this movie doesn't really have any nostalgia to me. It's not overly important or anything like that to me, but it's one of those movies where I just felt like it needed to be covered. It was time to be covered, and it's time to pick it. It's time to review it. It's very influential in horror, and especially of the decade. And kind of a turn of the, what would you say, like a turn of the wheel or whatever, kind of created the torture porn kind of thing, even though I don't really, it's a horror movie. There's supposed to be gore and some, horror movies have gore. Like it is what it is, So I don't really believe in the whole torture porn thing that much, but I will say I like Hostel. I think it's a very good movie for the second half of it. The first half I do have my qualms with. I put in my review at the end, my rating. I just think it's like extra college douchey writing, and it's kind of painful for me, honestly, to get through just the Paxton and way he says things. But I really think Eli Roth does a great job of creating like a terrible, dreadful feeling. Because to me, this movie feels realistic. Like you could feel like maybe your friend, could you imagine the story of like your friend going on a vacation, then you don't hear from him again? Like this just feels real to me, and that's what makes it scary. On top of the horrible things they do to the people. So I'm a fan of the movie. It's not my favorite, but I do like it. Brother Brian, you want to go next?
Sure. I'd actually never seen this movie. I wasn't part of that world famous live Twitter watch. Truthfully, I suck at those. But I'd actually never seen any of them in the franchise until just now. Just like you mentioned, kind of it had that gore porn stigma around the franchise, and that just never really interested me around when this came out. And speaking of that, last week when talking about this movie, I think Nico said that he felt like this one really did kind of start the gore porn trend, and Mike said that he really thinks it kind of got a bad rap. I tend to agree more with Nico on this one, but I do agree, especially after watching it, I think that this can definitely be given that title. I mean, hey, it's Eli Roth. I mean, and plus, I will say too, it's like I said, it's nowhere near as bad as I think it's developed the reputation for in that regard. But personally, I wasn't a big fan of this one. It was just okay. I kind of felt like the plot and the characters were pretty stale. They tried to overcompensate, I think, with the shock gore, and I guess I just wanted a little more than it gave me. I think I expected more going into it, maybe, but definitely credit to Roth for doing something different than was going on around that time, 2005. It was still enough to make me want to at least check out Hostel Part Two, though, and whoo, I definitely think that this one is the best one in the franchise. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to say off the bat that I like this film for what it is. I think it has its place in horror. And I want to make this very clear. Last week I said something that I still believe in. And that is that the idea that this movie is torture porn to me is bogus. And I'm going to go a little bit off of what Nico said in his open. I don't think torture porn exists. Now, are there bad films, especially in this 2000s era, that kind of take the violence to the extreme? Yeah, there's a few. But overall, horror movies are just horror movies. And we've seen exploitation films going all the way back to the 50s and 60s, 70s, the list goes, Cannibal Holocaust, things like that. I mean, these types of movies existed in a different realm back then. And so to me, this movie gets a little bit of a bad rap the same way that Human Centipede gets a bad rap for what it is. The first one. Excuse me, Hostel 2, I get it more. I still don't necessarily agree with that label being put on it. Hostel 3 is just a piece of shit. But I'll say that this first one to me doesn't quite classify as quote unquote torture porn. Now, there are some problems with this movie. I don't think the story is very good. And I know that's kind of a common complaint, and that's why it got the torture porn label in the first place. Part of the reason is because a lot of people think there's no plot really, or no good plot here. It's just kind of on-screen killings for the sake of it. I don't know if I agree with that either, but I definitely agree with the people that say, the story is a little weak. The reason these killings happen are a little weak. Nico touched on some of the writing. I mean, I kind of expected out of Eli Roth and, and his group of people. I really do. I like some of Eli Roth's work, but I don't think he's like some mastermind of horror or anything. So I think the writing is a little schlocky. I think the acting is okay for a horror movie. And I hate using that caveat when it comes to acting, because I feel like the genre gets labeled unfairly as having bad acting when we've seen some goddamn fine performances as we reviewed, 200 plus episodes now. There's some damn fine acting within the genre. And this movie's just okay as far as the acting goes. Now, one thing Nico said that I agree with, fantastic feeling of dread that Eli Roth captures. And I've seen a lot of people say this movie's mean-spirited. I guess, but there's a lot of horror that's mean-spirited that makes you kind of feel gross and dirty and grimy, like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't think has any uplifting moment at all. It's gross. It's kind of, what it is. And the same with the remake. That's just the kind of film it is. So I don't necessarily understand the rap that this franchise has gotten now. 2's not very good. 3 is really bad, but I think this first starting film is fine. I think it's a good little horror movie. It's a short watch, thank the Lord. And I think there's some really creative and cool kills. So overall, I think it's a good movie. There's some big, big problems with the writing, the story, and all the, the little stuff. But for what we get on screen, I think it's a pretty good film.
Yeah, this movie, I agree. This is a pretty good movie, especially for the time. The scariest thing about this movie is the plausibility of it. Like, this is a very possible scenario for traveling overseas, and that makes it even, that's the scariest thing about it. I enjoy this movie. It's not one of those movies that I'm like, I wouldn't label this comfort movie because there's nothing comforting about watching it. It's a very unsettling movie, but it is one of those movies like I can go back to and watch countless times and never really get tired of it for whatever reason. I don't know why. I agree, Nico. A lot of the dialogue, especially in the first half of the movie, is terrible, especially in 2021 or 2022, whatever the hell year this is. We're dropping F bombs and R words, and I'm not talking about fuck. I'm talking about the other F bomb. So this has some cringe dialogue for 2022, but looking at it through the lens of time and remembering, how I unfortunately may or may not have used to speak. I get it, but overall, like I said, this is a movie there's nothing unreasonable about it. There's nothing that, you don't have to suspend your disbelief that much to believe it. You wanted to talk about, Nico, you said Eli Roth does a good job of, I can't remember the phrase you used, but like you said that he creates an uncomfortable atmosphere or something. Yeah, no shit. This man also wrote Knock Knock, which I told you guys is my nightmare come true. So because I 100% would fall into that trap. So yeah, he knows how to capture my horror element at least. But I went back and looked at some of the tweets that we did from the watch along back in March 27th of 2020. Which, by the way, I don't remember this, but we did 2 movies that day. We did Scream 4 and then did Hostel back to back. Man, my CTE is kicking my ass. I don't remember that at all. But regardless, I think this is a very good movie. Well, let me rephrase that. Not very good. There's obviously flaws with it. It's not going to be a 10 by any stretch of the imagination. But I think for what it is, it's a good horror movie that will certainly scare the shit out of you. Now, one thing you mentioned, torture porn, that phrase gets thrown around a lot. So the subgenre is technically splatter film, and it was coined by George A. Romero to describe Dawn of the Dead in 1978. But David Edelstein, film critic, he labeled this film torture porn, and he's the one that came up with that term. And retroactively, Saw was labeled torture porn. So this movie was made after, but this one is the one that really coined that phrase. And I get it. It's not everyone's cup of tea. It certainly spawned a lot of gore, as far as increasing the gore factor. I don't think movies like Terrifier would necessarily be what it was if it weren't for this movie. I think this movie did a lot to advance that subsection of the genre.
Agreed.
I agree.
Oh, yeah. Any more opening thoughts before we jump into the scene by scene? All right, let's start. The film starts with an off-screen man whistling as he cleans up this dirty room while opening credits roll. We see bloody tools rinsed off and blood going down a drain, and we see a dirty chair as a door is slammed shut. Rock music plays as 3 guys leave their hostel to go to a hemp museum. Oli brings a stone girl over and Paxton says, "We can't rail her, it's illegal." Paxton and Josh take a hit of some strong stuff. They're in a club now dancing and trying to pick up women. Josh offers to buy these 2 girls a drink, but they leave when they see his fanny pack. Paxton gives him hell over it. Ollie is having sex with a woman in a bathroom stall. Josh gives him the fanny pack and gets in an altercation as he goes to talk to some girls. He and Paxton are thrown out the club. Paxton tells a line of customers it's wall-to-wall cocks, and now he calls a woman a pig. He tells Josh to get over his ex. He has to get some new women. We see Josh walking through this hallway where these rooms where people are having rough sex. Josh goes into a room and the woman tells him to come sit. She undresses, but he's gone. And I brought back an old line. The moment was too big. He pissed down his leg. The 3 guys can't get into their room. They're past curfew. Paxton yells out in German to let us in, and others begin to throw bottles at them from their windows. They're in a random room now, and Alex tells them not everyone wants to kill Americans. He asks where they travel to, and Josh says they're over Amsterdam. Alex says if they're looking for girls, he says he can help them. They say thanks, but they're good, and he shows them pictures on his camera of a bunch of naked women. He says the best girls are at a hostel in Slovakia. They love Americans. He says they won't find this hostel on any guide. They go crazy over American guys. The guys are on a train out to Slovakia, and Paxton is drawing on Ollie's butt cheeks to take pictures with Josh. A Dutch businessman sits with them and shows them his daughter's picture. Ollie shows him his daughter's pictures now, and Josh is surprised that he has a daughter. The businessman laughs and says they'll like Slovakia. You can pay to do anything. He now begins to eat a salad with his bare hands. He likes to have a connection with his food. He asks Josh what's his nature as he puts his hand on his thigh, and he snaps on him and he leaves their booth. They laugh, saying he finally hooked up. They exit the train and are not impressed with their surroundings. Josh jokes we could visit some factories as they take a cab. They're dropped off in a much nicer looking town, and Ollie celebrates with hands to the sky. This place is beautiful, I wrote. The men keep backpacking and make it to the hostel. They're instantly flirted with as soon as they walk in, as Pulp Fiction is on TV. They're given their keys and are told to leave their passports at the desk. She tells them they'll have roommates, and Paxton isn't thrilled. Will until he sees their beautiful girls who invite them to a spa. They're all in a sauna, and Ollie says he's so happy he shaved his balls. Josh says he's an American to Natalia. Paxton asks where the girls are from. Ollie begins to sing in Russian to impress Natalia, and she joins him singing. They're out dancing now. Ollie and Paxton are given some pills, and Josh gets his pill from kissing Natalia. Ollie is dancing with Vala, the front desk lady, and Josh leaves to get some fresh air. He goes outside and coughs. He takes a hit on his inhaler, and the candy gang approaches and demands $1. He's weirded out, and the Dutch businessman gives them $1. He says they commit crime and will hurt anyone. Josh offers to buy him a drink. The two men share a drink now as Josh apologizes for what happened earlier. He tells Josh he chose to be a family man, but Josh should do what's best for him. Josh, Paxton, and Ollie are in bed with the women now, and Josh is having the time of his life. All right, Brian, that's the opening set of scenes. Go ahead.
Well, first off, I want to say you better put some fucking respect on the Bubblegum Gang because that's fucking they're incredible. But the opening credits here with the dripping water, the blurred out scenes, the blood, the whole thing, I think use some sound design amazingly, and definitely reminded me of a certain 1984 film's opening. Kind of taking place in a boiler room of a dream, perhaps. By the way, not sure if we've ever mentioned it, but we actually interviewed that guy on don'tgooutthere.com. But like Nico touched on, I think that this does a great job of setting up what I think Roth gets perfect in this movie, which is, I agree, atmosphere. Also, just let me go ahead and get away from the technical garble and say that this is genuinely terrifying premise to me personally. One of my biggest, an irrational fear of mine is being kidnapped or being put in a prison in a foreign country, and this plays so well on those. Uh, I mean, this is genuinely terrifying to me personally. But Roth and all of his movies, all of them that I can think of anyway. They take me out of my comfort zone watching them, and that's a big thing for me. But kind of getting back to what I mentioned in the opening, I just don't care about these characters. Roth does do a damn great job, I think, of portraying these like careless group of douchebags as a pretty damn realistic. And I mean, shit, I don't think it's any secret that this is pretty much how the rest of the world sees Americans. Like this. The whole disconnect from the rest of the world, the lack of give a shit for anyone else's culture or what's going on around them, while they're there. Plus, I mean, aren't these college guys? You can say a lot about this movie, but you can't say it's not realistic, in my opinion. Anyway, I just don't think that these three guys really get much character development for me to give a shit about them. I care about them about as much as they care about waking up all of those people after getting locked out of the hostel. A couple of cameos here. At around 3 minutes, Roth is the American customer in a Red Sox t-shirt in an Amsterdam coffee shop who's laughing at his friend who was choking off of a hit. And around 9 minutes, Quentin Tarantino himself appears as a shirtless German man screaming from a window. Also, we get a cameo from Legolas from Lord of the Rings, who pushes Josh in the club, taking a break from the fucking Middle Earth there, I guess. Nerd alert. But I want to give huge props to the Dutch businessman, Jan Vlask, as well. By far the creepiest son of a bitch in this movie. I think he plays him so damn well. Probably the most impressive thing about this whole thing is that he doesn't speak a word of English at all. He learned all of his English lines phonetically, and that's very, very impressive to me. You can see that they try to give Josh even like a little depth here, showing that he isn't real sure about his sexuality, putting his hand back on the Dutchman's leg. That's what I got from it anyway. But it's kind of just gone after that. So it just kind of seems out of place with no more like real development on any front, really. Uh, Roth does a good job trying to drive home that they don't really know much about Ollie. I'm not even going to try Ebor's last real name, by the way, so look that up because I'm not even trying to say that word. And he was probably the most interesting character in the group to me. It's just truly like a shame though that we didn't get to kind of hang out more with him. So that's all I had though. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like this opening credit scene. I think it kind of sets the tone. It's a little creepy. Kind of like the water drops or blood drops or whatever. I really like that. This is also a fear of mine, and I think it's a logical fear, whether you're an American traveling to another country or from anywhere else traveling to America. Like sometimes those things can be scary. You hear stories and it's not like every American city is the safest place of all time. There's a lot of crappy shit going on in this country as well, especially at the time that we're recording this. So like you have no, it's a rational fear for any human being to have when traveling abroad. So that makes this movie scary. When someone asks, I get asked all the time, can a movie still be scary to you? Is there a movie that can still scare you, or are you numb to everything? This situation does kind of give me the heebie-jeebies. So every time I watch this movie, I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't really want to get trapped somewhere where you have nowhere to go. And so that alone is enough to kind of scare me. But I'm with you, Brian. I don't give a shit about these three guys like at all. But one thing I will say is it's very obvious the type of character they're trying to play. They're trying to play the American that doesn't give a fuck about where they are, their surroundings, no care for anybody else. They're all kind of douchebags, especially in Amsterdam, where they just think they can walk in a club or bar and run the place. They can scream outside of hostels when people are sleeping. The hostel has a curfew. You respect that curfew. You're in another country. You're not a native there. Respect the rules. That's how that goes. And they just show a lack of disrespect and self-discipline and all that stuff. And they just wake the whole fucking place up instead of acting, in accordance. So I think the scene on the train here is really, really good. Maybe my favorite scene in the movie because there's some actual good acting here. The old Dutch businessman does a great job. Brian said he's probably the creepiest guy. I would say that you're right, because there really is most of the other villains in this movie are kind of faceless, except for the American guy towards the end. But like, we don't get to see any like character depth, and we kind of get to learn about this guy. He's got a family, a daughter, and all this other stuff, and so to see that kind of interaction between him and Josh as well. You mentioned the sexuality and all that stuff, and I took that too. They kind of just threw it aside. We never heard much about it again because Josh ends up having sex with someone, so like it doesn't really get brought up. But that's what I took from it as well. I've seen a lot of people take this movie as these three kind of paying for their sins in a way. I'm not really sure I'm down with that, but I mean, they're not the most likable guys. They see women as meat, as just, toys for them to do whatever they want. That's kind of how they view women. And so that makes them not very likable guys in any way. I like this beginning scene at the hostel because it really does a good job of kind of luring you in to being comfortable with the women they meet. Or it does to me. So again, this set of scenes is a little unbearable at times because of the dialogue, but I do think it does a good job of establishing some kind of narrative plot. I think eventually it kind of loses that, but so far I'm at least invested in where the story goes.
Yeah, I think the opening set of scenes is very effective. I mean, first of all, the whistling is so unsettling. I don't know what it is, but it's very creepy. And how we can't really see, like it's not in focus what we're seeing, and they don't explicitly show us, is unnerving to say the least. I mentioned it before. Very rough dialogue in these club scenes, though. Once we meet our protagonists here, I don't hate them. I think that they did a good job of acting the part because that you're right. I think that's what they were trying to do. They're establishing them as the unlikable Americans. But like you mentioned, also, Eli Roth has caught a lot of flack for this movie from Slovakia, some European countries because of how the film is portrayed. But his response was, "This was not a geographical film. Your average American doesn't even know where these countries are. They keep making Texas Chainsaw Massacres, and people still go to Texas. So he wasn't doing it to disparage these countries. It was more so to just have some sympathy built in because these are Americans in a foreign land, but then also understand that these guys are kind of assholes." But
That's a
I
great
think,
that's a great line too by Roth saying that about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing. You can also tell though that if you have seen Hostel 2, you can tell that it did weigh on him some because he completely changes the way that he portrays some of those countries and things in that movie. Anyway, go ahead, man. Sorry.
yeah, no, you're good. We get to know the dynamic between these guys who don't really know Oli that much, but he seems to be the most likable of the bunch, or at least the most entertaining, most charismatic. Um, then when they meet Alexei and he takes them back to his place, Oli just locks in, sits down right beside the bed, and is watching these people get their freak on, and that was funny to me. My man was never mind. But Alexei just puts off a very creepy vibe, right? Like, I don't know. This is something about him, and I said this in the or someone said this in the tweet along. I think it was Mike actually. It said these guys just left a place full of girls to go to another place full of girls. Idiots. Like, what are you doing here, man? That was tweeted from the official pod account. I saw that tweet and I was like, you know what? You're right. Why are you hopping on the train to Busan? And there's all kinds of it right here. So these boys are just clearly pulling a Kevin Gates. They're just thinking with their dicks.
Sorry, Dustin. These are three of the horniest motherfuckers we've covered so far. I don't think there's any question.
Without question. But then we get on the train though, and we meet Edward Salad Hands. I laugh my ass off every time I see an Italian dude on a train trying to touch another dude because I think of Euro Trip. You guys have seen Euro Trip, right? Even when I watch this movie, I wait for him and I anticipate him saying "mi scusi," but unfortunately, it never happens. And then when they get off the train, it is a promising looking metropolis. Like, you're like, okay, at least they're not in some desolate lands. Like, there's potential here. Little did we know it's all downhill from there. But man, when we meet Natalia, what a babe. And I get it. Yep, I'd fall into that trap. Eli Roth, you son of a bitch. You know how to get me. But I 100%.
Free fucking pizza.
Yeah, I would be searching for my free pizza in Europe. Especially, didn't she say she was born in Italy or something? I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Okay, mozzarella. But
Mozzarella.
I do think it's funny though. Throughout the movie, like, this is the best she looks in this set of scenes, and that was done intentionally. They made her character uglier and uglier as the film goes on to kind of portray how she is on the inside. Like, she's not a good person. She's not an attractive person on the inside. But man, right here, yep, wool's over my eyes, brother. I'm in. So good set of scenes to set the mood, set the dynamic, and I'm on board despite the rocky dialogue. And I don't think it's shaky acting. I think it's just shaky writing for the characters.
Yeah, I agree. I think the acting is fine in this movie, honestly.
Yeah, same.
Josh and Paxton wake up and hear the women talking as they shower. Paxton says, "We're never leaving here." They notice Ollie isn't here and say they'll see him at breakfast, but they can't find him there either. They ask the guy at the receptionist desk, and he says Ollie checked out this morning. Paxton tries to call him and leaves a voicemail. Josh leaves a note for them to contact them if he gets back. Kana runs up to Paxton and Josh and shows them a picture of her friend and Ollie together. The picture says sayonara. Paxton and Josh are talking and walking, and Paxton tells Josh when he saw a girl drown when he was 8 years old. He says he could have done more to save that girl, and he felt terrible about it. The candy gang jumps in front of them and demands bubblegum. Josh gives them some and says they're dangerous. They see someone wearing Ollie's jacket and chase after him, calling his name. They go into a building called Museum Tortury. They hear screaming as they enter and see all these torture devices. Josh is scared and they call for Ollie again, but realize it's a different man wearing his jacket. Paxton grabs him, asking him where he got the jacket. He walks away saying it's his jacket. Paxton gets a picture message and it says, "I go home" from Ollie. We see Ollie has been decapitated as a man leaves his cell and goes into another cell with the Kana's friend. He puts the cutters to her toe, and it transitions to Kana clipping her toenails. Paxton asks her when she's leaving, and she says tomorrow. He asks if she wants to go with them to the train, and she agrees. The girls check on Josh and Paxton. Josh says he just wants to find his friends and get out. Paxton tells Josh they don't really know Ollie. People do things differently in other countries. But I wrote Josh seems reassured after talking to Paxton. Paxton and Josh are at another bar, and Josh is not having a good time. He sees Ollie as he spaces out. He says he's going back to the room. He's feeling tired. Natalia offers to go back with him, but he says no rush. Josh begins to not feel well as he walks up to the front desk. Vala offers to help him up after she notices he doesn't look well. He lays down in bed, and we see another man walk up to the door. Back to Paxton with the ladies, and they're chatting, having fun. And he asks, "Where's the restroom?" And he asks for their drink order, and he walks away. Paxton now gets locked in a side room, and no one can hear him banging on the door over the music. Paxton falls to the floor and passes out. All right, Brian, go ahead. That's the next set of scenes I got.
I've I've shit on the character development, but I do like at least this story about the little girl drowning from Paxton at the start of this set of scenes. I will admit that the first time I watched it, I didn't catch the relevance of that until I was thinking about it after, and I was like, why did he go back for that girl he barely knew? And then this story hit me, and I mean, I know it's a spoiler for later on, but I really like this subtle planting of it right here. Jay Hernandez, I think, does a really great job with what he's given throughout this movie. Friday Night Lights, and was awesome as hell as Diablo and Suicide Squad. And I'll go ahead and say it before Nico does. Fucking nerd. But he's been in a ton of stuff. I'd love to have him on the show sometime. Someone should tell our producer and get him on that. Oh, and something else I meant to bring up in the last set of scenes too is this fucking group of kids. Like Roth hired real street kids to play what they called the Bubblegum Gang. Well, I'll go ahead and say this here. The fucking Bubblegum Gang, which I believe was one of the rejected names for this show, by the way, before me and Dustin started. I'll go ahead and say the kids, they're from my favorite characters in the movie. Like, I love these little shits. And, and as we kind of get into this world a little more, man, it's fucking terrifying. In fact, a not so fun fact at all, but Eli Roth said that he initially wanted to do a documentary on the subject of murder vacation. But as he was doing the research, not only found it almost impossible to get into the contact with people involved with obviously such a business, he realized very quickly how he could put himself into danger asking around about it. Good fucking choice there, Eli Roth, because my man made some great flicks after this, I think. Roth, honestly, I mean, I think that he doesn't get enough credit in the genre. Like, I mean, I don't think he's, super. I don't think he's James Wan or Wes Craven or anything, but I think that he's created his own little niche out there, and I think it's pretty good. The cut, no pun intended there, but the scene cut that was the transition from old dude with the bolt cutters on old girl's toe to the girl cutting her toenails back at the hostel, I thought was absolutely amazing. And before I get into just some like kind of nitpick things I noticed here, Dustin brought up Roth making Barbara Nedeljakova, that plays Natalie, uglier as the movie went on. I mean, first of all, that's barely even noticeable because she's absolutely gorgeous, without question. But I think that little subtle thing is just, God, I think is pretty damn brilliant. And apparently, after this movie, she went on record as a saying in like interviews, she didn't really enjoy taking her clothes off for this film. But I don't know if things didn't work out career wise like she thought, but she would actually do a movie called Strippers versus Werewolves in 2012. And that for some reason just hit my to watch list. I've actually been trying to pick a werewolf movie. Just saying. But lastly, a few little nitpicks I had. I wish that they would have gone a little more into, I mean, unless I missed it, who the fuck the guy with Ollie's jacket was after the chase. That kind of seems like it went nowhere else. Like the guy doesn't pop up anywhere else that I've noticed. You can obviously tell too, like the season changes, and I assume it was on reshoots. I don't know, but it goes from like spring to winter and then kind of back to spring again, all in a few days. Of course, that could just be weather, like it is in Florida. I don't know. Go ahead, man.
Okay, one small nitpick I have with the film is me not caring a ton about the characters. So I'm gonna get to Paxton in a second, but as far as my ability to care that Ollie is missing, it's not something I give two shits about. Man, they quote unquote, just met this guy not that long ago. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm in a different country and I'm with two guys and I know the other guy, he's a friend of mine, and the other guy we picked up along the way, and the guy we picked up along the way goes missing, I'm not searching for this motherfucker. I'm sorry. That's not my fault.
I agree.
I can't. I mean, I may look for a little bit, but after the first hour or two, hey, man, I'm sorry. He probably dissed us. No big deal. Not concerned with it. Would probably make me want to leave, though. That I will say. Like, we should probably get the fuck out of here in case some weird shit went down. So that part I had a really hard time kind of like sinking my teeth into. But one thing I will say is something Brian touched on. This scene with the story about the little girl with Paxton, how it comes back into play later, is really, really good. And I think that is some actual good writing from Roth and company. Like, for all the bad dialogue, there's at least something to sink my teeth into here later on in the film from a character development standpoint. And let me be clear about my stance on the acting in the film. It's not terrible. I just don't think it's outside of the guy who plays Paxton, which Brian touched on. He's in a lot of other stuff, which I knew. I know him from Friday Night Lights, but he's in the whatever the other nerd movie Brian named is. But but he's probably the highlight of the acting for sure. But something that Dustin touched on that I'm so glad that he did is just the uglifying, for lack of a better term, that Natalia goes throughout the movie. It's very, very subtle here, but it gets a little bit worse each time. That is so good. And it's probably one of my, favorite parts of the film. It's just noticing that and being able to understand what that entails and what that means. Part of my, again, nitpicks here is not caring about the character. So what Joss is kind of going through, I'm not super invested. He seems a little more concerned about God knows what. Like he's more concerned about Ollie than Paxton is. I don't know if that makes him a better person or what. But again, just kind of difficult for me to invest. I mean, there's some good stuff here, but this set of scenes to me just doesn't hook me quite like the first set of scenes did. Now, there's some good stuff like we've all touched on, but I had a hard time. Now, it picks up a little bit here in the next set of scenes. That's for damn sure, especially right off the bat. But I do think that this one, because of the lack of character development, to me, I had a hard time investing in the stories of these two guys that are left.
I can get on board with that. I completely agree with what you said there. Like, damn, Ollie, that sucks. You abandoned us. All right, so where are we going? Like that's what I'm, that's
sorry.
how I'm treating it.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm sorry.
Especially like, you did what you could. You tried to call him, he didn't answer. You left a note at the front desk in case he comes back. Boom, you did everything you can. A couple things about this set of scenes, like, there's a lot of boobies in this movie. I was going back through
there's a lot of boobies.
I was going back through the the live tweets that we all shared. A couple of our friends and listeners, Jeremy Ireland tweeted, "LOL, my 11-year-old just came in, and I was like, you can't watch this Q. It's got mad boobs in it." And then Jay Brad said, "Lots of titties in this one," and it's like there really is. And then in doing my research for this, I found that in October 2020. Website Mr. Skin. I'm so sorry. I just referenced that website on this podcast. Like that's the skeeviest thing that I've ever mentioned on this show. But the top 10 horror franchises with the most female nude scenes, and this one comes in 6th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6. So a lot of boobies. Considering there's only 3 movies. Some of the other franchises on this are Friday the 13th, Hellraiser, Wrong Turn. So a lot of films in those franchises. This has got 3, and it's got the 6 most nude scenes in it. Bubblegum Kids. Yeah, you mentioned it, Brian. It's phenomenal. They are enjoyable, especially the way they stomp the shit out of that skull later in the movie, which we'll get to. But at the time, though, you're like, man, fuck these kids. I remember when we did the tweet along, I don't know if I did it or if one of you guys did it, but someone tweeted #MFTK during this set of scenes, and I can completely concur. That might have been the first ever Man Fuck Them Kids award that we gave out. So shout out to that bit of history. I think it was pretty predictable that it was Edward Saladhan's that was the bad guy, if you will, in this set of scenes. It's pretty predictable, but that doesn't make it any less okay or settling. Like it's pretty unnerving, especially when you realize, oh shit, dude, maybe if you let this creepy old guy give you a handy dandy on the train, you wouldn't be in this predicament. I don't know, maybe not, but it's pretty apparent that he's upset that you spurned his advances. So there's not a lot in this set of scenes that to take notes on, in my opinion, but the best thing that could come of it was Paxton passing out. I think that's a good bit of writing because it would have been easy for him. Like, I don't know. That was a great choice, I think, because he had a legit reason. Like, that's very believable. And it just sets up the next set of scenes. So overall, it's an okay set of scenes. The remainder of the movie is where the action really picks up.
Hey, I'm surprised none of you Shining guys picked up or at least mentioned on the Room 237 Shining reference.
I had it in my my trivia for the end of the review. So yeah, you're right. Room 237 was definitely a nod to the GOAT Stanley Kubrick's movie, The Shining.
Wow, I got it in the next set of scenes. I got it wrote down. We're in Josh's POV now, and he sees all kind of medical instruments and tools on tables, and a man enters the room with him. The sack is removed from his head, and Josh asks who he is and where is he as he begins to cry. He begs for him to stop. He's cuffed to a chair. He brings a drill closer to him and drills into his leg. He sits in the chair shaking from the pain and the experience. It's a Dutch businessman. He reveals his scalpel, and Josh asks why. He says he always wanted to be a surgeon, but the boards would never pass him, and Josh vomits. He now tells him he went into business, and he says it's so boring. He says a surgeon holds the person's very life in their hands. Josh begs to be let go. The businessman leans down and makes 2 slices, and Josh begins to shake and scream. His cuffs are undone, and he opens the door. You are free to go, and he begins to whistle. He stands up to walk away, but both Achilles' tendons were sliced. He's pulled up by his hair, and he tells him, you can't pay me. I'm already paying them. And Josh is killed off screen. Paxton is found in the side room and makes it back to the hotel. And this is why I wrote it down, Brian. He has room 237. Nice nod. He's told Josh has already checked out. He's told to chill out. You're on vacation, and is given another room. Paxton asks if a Japanese girl was here in the lobby, but he's told she left already. Paxton walks in on some new girls going to the spa, and he's invited just like the last girls invited him. He calls Josh and leaves a voicemail. He chases after Natalia, but she gets away in a cab. Paxton is looking on his phone, and the candy gang snatches it from him. Paxton pounces a kid and strangles him briefly, but then lets him go. Paxton makes it to the police and explains Josh wouldn't be the type to just leave. The cops aren't much help. He's told he will be contacted if Josh is picked up or located. He asks where he's from and says, you're so far from home when he tells them California. And I just wrote that was pretty creepy. Paxton goes into this building after he thinks he sees Natalia. He sees her at a table and they ask him to have a drink. He asks if they've seen Josh. They say he's with Ollie, but he asks if they listened to his message. He got locked up in the bar. Where are my friends? He yells. She says his friends are at an art exhibit. He's not buying it. Then he asks, where's the art show? Can we go? Paxton and Natalia are in a cab, and she asks if he wants gum. She thumbs through her purse but can't find any. The driver gives her a bag of candy. She says, we are here. The car stops, and the driver chats with a bunch of men outside of this building. She asks if he's coming or what. Paxton asks a man, how is it in there? That's a nice little nod to Takashi Miike. He says, be careful, you could spend all your money. Paxton asks how much, and he's told for him free. Natalia says it's in there. He walks in and she begins to laugh. She says he's so serious. She follows behind him. Paxton walks by all these cells where people are killed, and he sees Josh's body cut open, having surgery performed on him. Natalia laughs at him, backing away. I get a lot of money for you, and I make you my bitch. He's grabbed from behind now and dragged into another room as he sees other people being killed brutally. He's put in a chair and handcuffed to the chair, and he's left in the room in the dark. All right, go ahead, Brian.
First off, bravo to the effects in this movie. K&B Effects Group and their entire team, just incredible work. Hell, over 150 gallons of blood were used in making this, which is apparently nearly 3 times the amount used in Cabin Fever just 3 years earlier. But when stuff can actually physically make me cringe in a movie, like it did here with Josh having his Achilles cut, and later on too, I'll bring it up. But just freaking bravo. I also love the way everything is shot down here by Roth. The hole in that bag that Josh wakes up to, something so simple, yet it's so effective to me. I mean, yeah, we've seen glimpses, but you finally get to see this dungeon for the most part here, and starting out through just a peephole, and then opening up to that whole fucking disgusting world up. Which, I mean, again, bravo to the atmosphere. Dustin put it perfectly with a tweet he made on the film, so I'll let him say that. But it's just great. Now I meant
You
to
mean the
touch
one
on
where I said I guarantee it smells like 3 week old cat food and a 2-pack of ass?
that one. Yep, perfectly, exactly. um, and I meant to touch on it a few scenes ago, actually. And again, I can't take credit for this. I honestly didn't put it together till I read this fact. But Roth has said that these scenes in the slaughterhouse are meant to parallel the scenes set earlier in that brothel, with the latter being like the extreme view of sex, while the former being an extreme view of the violence. Knowing that after the fact really opened my eyes to that brilliance the next time I watched it. But a nitpick here is basically, okay, so we are 45 minutes into this movie, virtually right at halfway through the movie at this point, and there is nobody left but Paxton to even give a shit about, even a little bit. I think personally we should have brought Kana into the mix here at least, and made us care at the very least a little more about her character, which we know absolutely nothing about at this point. I think that would have made us not only had a female presence in the group, which honestly I thought was missing. Just maybe a girl that's one of the guys and basically on the same sort of mission here. I don't know. I know I've totally changed this character completely here, but I guess I just wanted to care a little bit more about someone else the rest of the movie. And especially when she goes train hopping later on, it would have mattered a little more. I don't know. Now it's a good thing that this wasn't done, or even just a few years later, because I mean there was GPS tracking on phones in 2005, but not to the extent to when the amazing iPhone came out in 2007 and beyond. Again, I'm not sure if they go into it later in the series, or account for that. At least they didn't in Hostel 2. But that'd be a major plot issue, I would imagine, as friends would kind of be able to track phones and stuff later on. So I don't know, just a thought. Um, I love the subtlety of him being put in another room and having the same script basically read to him by the new girls. That's when you're really, or at least I was really like, oh shit, the girls are deep into this too. Um, my only real problem here in this group of scenes is like the scenes with the kids stealing the phone and him almost choking the one to death. I don't really know what purpose that shows. And I mean, and you brought up the Takashi, I guess, cameo. He's now a 2-time Don't Go Out There veteran, as he was the director on one of our favorite movies as a group on this show, 1999's Audition. Listen to that review on don'tgooutthere.com. Actually, don't, because I gave it a 1. Go ahead, Mike.
That, and how dare
I
you?
should add that to
insult-
my watch list, right?
Yes,
I haven't seen it. Okay.
it's a must watch at least once. Just to say you watch it. You don't want to be missing cultural things like Nico. Anyway, don't make that face at me. You know the deal. Anyway, sorry, I gave up bullying. My apologies to everybody. Okay. This Josh Death scene is one of my favorite scenes in the film. I think it comes across so well. It's brutal. It's intense. It's kind of, when you realize who's doing it, who's performing it, it just adds that extra layer of, oh, this fucking guy, and we knew him to be a little creepy, a little weird, but we didn't quite know our first time watching it that this was what was going to happen. We probably figured something was going to happen, but wow, this is something else. And the deranged look he has on his face while he's kind of torturing Josh is something that's hard to kind of shake me. Again, best acting in the film, hands down, by this guy. To cut another man's Achilles is fucking insane, man. Like, everyone want to know what my Achilles heel is. Love. I don't get enough of it. Shout out to Dustin. Jay-Z, what's up? Anyway, no, but I really like the scene. It's brutal, and maybe this is the scene that kind of gets that torture porn narrative going. But I don't know. I think it works within the story of this film, the one that there is anyway. And I think it works. And this set of scenes is kind of just us following Paxton along. He's kind of our quote unquote final guy, final girl here, which you know, I kind of found to be weird. You almost, expectation would have had you have, Josh be that guy, but okay. This whole like, where's my friends? It's almost like the damn movie. Golly, I'm drawing a blank. Where my family, not. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about. But he's just kind of on the lookout, and these two, we knew from the beginning that these two were probably not going to end up being the best of friends or the best people in the world. But like you said, Natalia kind of uglies throughout the film, and you really see it in this scene in the bar or diner or whatever, where she's talking and she just looks more evil, like a dark spell had been cast on her or something. Like, it's very, very noticeable here. And this art show thing, which I think is a great line, one of the more well-written things to kind of play on that this is art, what's going on. I think it's, really, really clever. And again, you mentioned the bubblegum gang, which I haven't brought up that much. I'm glad that someone paid attention to them because they didn't really hit with me. This set of scenes right here pissed me off, with the bubblegum gang. And I know, Brian's going to take up for them, but I don't know. These kind of are annoying little shits to me. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that didn't register in my brain as something of any kind of importance, honestly. But that's just me. It's just what I took away from it. All in all, I think this set of scenes is most well known for the cutting of the Achilles, which, there was a thing on Twitter earlier that asked what movie scene made you go, what the fuck? The first time I ever saw that one, that was it. I said, what the fuck? And I wasn't numb to all this, gore at the time that I saw this film. So this was a pretty big, like, that fucking hurts. I can feel it. I can feel it while the scene happens. So not the best set of scenes in the world, but I think for that one alone, it's worth it.
All right, so I was clearly a little early on the reveal of who it was, Everett Salahands. That's my bad. I said it last set of scenes, but my point still stands. I do love the point of view that we get through the eye hole when he's looking around the room and he's just got one eye hole to look through. The fact that they only gave him one eye hole to look through, I swear to God, I thought of Django. I can't see fucking Chip with this thing on. That's where my mind went.
Now we're not saying
the sack was a bad idea, but this movie has too much vomit in it. This set of scenes and the next set of scenes. That's the worst part about this whole movie.
You're goddamn right, and it looks like poo too. It doesn't look like vomit. It looks like they're vomiting poo.
Baby shit green is disgusting. But other than the vomit, which, okay, the vomit did look okay. The effects are phenomenal in this movie, Brian, like you mentioned. But damn, man, that vomit was the roughest part for me to watch in this entire movie. Not because they puke, like people puke all the time, but puking and choking in it and shit. And it's just like, oh God, that's rough. The Achilles, that's brutal. Like that'll make the hair on your back of your neck stand up a little bit. That hurts to look at. But I do know that Kobe Bryant would have still went to the free throw line and drained both of his free throws with his ruptured Achilles. That's just how he was. The fact that Josh died here is crazy. Like, that's really oh shit, because he's your main guy. Honestly, he was your main guy in the club scene. This was about him. He's got to get over his ex-girlfriend and blah blah blah. Paxton was a support character. So I like that little twist there. We get the flip, or the script gets flipped. Paxton's the last guy standing. And then the oh shit moment we get of the girls inviting him in once he gets back to the hostel, and he's like, no worries, man, you're on vacation. Let me get you another room. And he walks back to the room. It's a different two girls, but it's identical to the scene earlier. That's when it's like, oh no. Like, if you didn't know that the girls were in on it before, it's very clear that they were here because it's verbatim. Like, this is exactly what happened. It was very frustrating with the kids stealing the phone. I agree, Mike. Now, Brian, I agree with both of you guys. You can both be right, and I love you both. But the bubblegum kids, they were cool and an interesting addition to the plot of this movie. But them stealing the phone here and then him choking one of them out and then just letting him go. It's like, nah, man, if you're going to do that, just kill the fucking kid, man. Get your phone back. Collateral damage. It happens. All's fair in love and war. And then once he gets, to the coffee shop or whatever the hell place it was, and he's, telling Svetlana and Natalia, did you get my message? And she's like, which message? There was a lot. Like, okay. Now I'm getting pissed off because you clearly know, you can sense the urgency in my voice, and you think this is a game. I'm just going to start smacking bitches around until you tell where my friends is. Bitches is a gender neutral term. I meant the guy that was sitting there too. I'm just going to start smacking people around until you tell me where my friend is, because clearly you guys don't understand or appreciate the urgency in the situation, and I think you might be in on it. So maybe would have expedited some things there. But I agree that the art show phrasing was phenomenal. Calling it an art show or exhibit. He's an exhibit for an artist, because it's clear that that's what those sick fucks viewed it as, was just this was art to them. This was an expression for them. This was an escape for them. Then when they show up there and he's getting to go in for free, I would have been suspicious. Yep, very suspicious. And then, the look on his face when he realizes, oh shit, that's my dog right there, just sliced up on the table. Nothing good can come of it. I'm probably just going to turn around and start running. I might not have made it far, but I'm just going to run and like Forrest Gump until they catch me. But overall, the tense situation, the tense moments in the movie are full force ahead, starting in this set of scenes through the ending.
All right, I'm not sure what this guy's title is, but I called him the guard. A guard walks in and tells him to talk and holds a gun to his body. He says he's American to the customer. He's shown the passport now. What the fuck is this? He yells out. Paxton begs to be let go. I won't tell anybody. The German surgeon walks to him with a big pair of scissors, teasing Paxton. He now walks to him and stabs him with his claw-like device, and Paxton begs for him to stop. He speaks German to him now to better relate. The man is breathing hard now and smacks him and walks out the room. The guard walks in and puts a ball gag in his mouth. He holds a gun to Paxton's head but walks away. A chainsaw is fired up now. Paxton shakes in the chair violently as a chainsaw is right by his face and begins to vomit. He sets the chainsaw down and removes the ball gag and drops it on the floor. He cuts two of Paxton's fingers off now and his hand comes out the cuff. The German slips on the ball gag and has his own leg cut off now. Paxton shimmies to the table and grabs the gun, killing the German. The guard here shouts and is shot and killed by Paxton when he enters the cell. He gets the key and removes the cuffs and grabs his fingers. Paxton puts on the suit and goes to make a run, but all the others are coming after him. He hides in a room and sees all the bodies on the floor. The light in the room comes on. It's the butcher. Paxton makes it out, hiding under other dead bodies as he's wheeled out on a cart. He's taken into an elevator and down into the butchering room. Paxton opens his eyes and sees Josh's dead body staring right at him. Paxton has his fingers taken by the butcher, and Paxton ambushes him in the furnace room with a hammer. Paxton takes the elevator up and makes it into the changing room for all the customers. He sees the cops are in on it with the torture business. Paxton gets changed and puts gloves on. It's discovered now that the guard has been killed and the others are alerted. Paxton sees a business card. It's called Elite Hunting, and prices on the back for how much it costs for the ethnicity of a person. Another customer asks, how was it? He says it was good. He's asked if he went for a local. Paxton says American, and it's called a big spender. He says they've got something special for him, and for 50 grand, she better be worth it. He says this is something you never forget. He shows him the tattoo and asks to see his, but they're distracted by a noise. He now asks how he did it, slow or something quick. He's confused on how he wants to kill the person. Paxton says, make it quick. And he says, fuck this, I'm going to kick it old school, and leaves. Paxton sneaks out and sees a bunch of people around the cars. He makes it outside and by the trunk of a car. He gets inside of it, but hears a woman screaming. It's Kana. Paxton shuts the door and goes back inside to help her. He sees Kana having a blowtorch put to her eye. He shoots the man, killing him. Kana is removed from her shackles, and we see her eye hanging out of its socket. Paxton cuts her eye off, and it oozes terribly. Paxton and Kana make it out and into the car and drive off. The men chase after them now. Kana is crying in the car as Paxton drives them into town. A van blocks an alley for them, and Paxton blows the horn, yelling for them to move. It's moved, and he sees Natalia and Svetlana and Alex walks up. They realize it's Paxton, and he runs them all three over. Natalia is now ran over by the pursuing car. The candy gang blocks the next entrance, and Paxton gives them the bag of candy from the car. The pursuing car meets the candy gang now and are all attacked, having rocks thrown at them, and their car is destroyed as their heads are bludgeoned. And the next set of scenes are the ending. Go ahead, Brian.
Now look, this motherfucker that has paid to cut up Paxton, Peter Janis is his name. This motherfucker right here killed this role. Like he's the most disturbing character to me in this film. I just did a little tap dance from what I said earlier, but I definitely just changed my mind real time over the Dutch businessman. This guy creeped me out. He had this whole like three finger vibe from Wrong Turn, and just the way like he almost had this like shake, this like orgasmic thing going on when he tortures him, and even like gets that little trophy of hair. In hell, how brilliant a writing is that? I mean, you know exactly why he took that piece of hair. That instantly shows you this isn't his first time, which definitely mirrors the way that the American businessman acts. And holy shit! I mean, Janice just killed the part, and without even speaking, it's all done with his eyes, mask, and all. Apparently, the little speech that Paxton gives him in German, he says, "If you kill me, it'll destroy your life. Every time you close your eyes, you'll see me. I'll be in your nightmares every night. Your whole life, I will ruin it." So, just a little tidbit there I thought was cool to read after the fact because obviously I don't speak German. But again, props to Jay Hernandez for his acting here, though, too, especially in this set of scenes. My only criticism here is why did Paxton get rid of the gun after shooting the guard? I know the one later from the businessman. He runs out of bullets after 3, I think. I get that one because you see it run out of bullets, but you don't in this scene. So
Yeah.
maybe one is to assume that those fancy silver guns only come pre-equipped with 3 bullets. Maybe I don't know, but I was wondering why the hell he threw that gun down after he killed the guard. I love the tension throughout here as he's trying to escape. Like I said earlier, I do enjoy the callback to earlier and him going back to get Kana. I just wish it would have given a little more kind of a base with that relationship to work with. The effects look amazing on the fucking eye hanging out. Logistically, I'm not really sure how that happens with a fucking blowtorch or that she wouldn't be passed out from the pain. But one thing is for certain, that green goo oozing out of the eye is fucking disgusting. Like the girls and Alex getting run over looked decent on the Natalia kill, but I was like, come the fuck on. Like he was so close they couldn't get out of the way. So he was going like 10 miles per hour tops and just got super lucky, I guess, with 2 of them hitting their heads on rocks, I guess. But meh. Finally, though, let me just hear it for the motherfucking bubblegum gang. Popping bubbles and popping heads. Favorite kill. Let's go.
Yeah, they came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and they're all out of bubblegum. They live.
Yeah.
Yeah, this set of scenes, I mean, so Paxton being toyed with was, like you said, that guy knocked it out of the park. The German surgeon, Peter Janis, however you say it. But he definitely killed the role because he does a great job of making you feel like he's toying with him, but at the same time making it feel like maybe he's sympathetic. Maybe Paxton's going to be able to talk his way out of this. I don't know. And then, bam. This is a perfect time for a T-shirt for Paxton. When he gets out of here, he's going to want to go to the gift shop and say, I came all the way to Europe, and all I got was a Ninja Turtle hand because his hand got fucked up. This guard might be the dumbest guard in all of history here. So first of all, when the guard is out in the, sitting at his little desk watching his porno flick, the porn that he's watching is Sex Fever from 2003. It's the X-rated parody of Eli Roth's first film, Cabin Fever. So that's kind of funny that Roth put that in there. But yeah, that man absolutely deserved to die. You go into a room, you hear someone call for you, you go into the room, and you see the patron on the floor dead. Your first thought is to let me kneel down with my back to the person who's the only other person in the room. Let me kneel down with my back to him and then get shot in the face. Like, come on, what a bitch, dude. And I agree, Brian. Why did he get rid of that gun, man? Even if it was out of bullets, you still want to take it because an empty gun scares people at least a little bit. They don't have to know it's empty. So he could have bought himself some time there, maybe. Um, but quick, brilliant thinking to lay on the cart under the bodies. I thought that was great. Like, that's something that, how do you even think of that? So I like that touch there. I may question how he doesn't bleed out throughout this process, throughout this movie, because he doesn't, cauterize that injury at all, and the blood just is flowing. But that's okay. That's the only thing that really, that, and like you said, how she didn't pass out from the pain and agony of the eyeball. Those are two things like, okay, maybe I have to suspend my disbelief a little bit. But when we get to meet the American client, shout out to Rick Hoffman. I think he's a super underrated actor. I don't know if you guys have ever watched the show Suits, but he's phenomenal in it. And he does a good job here of just portraying that arrogant, rich asshole that you want to hate, that views himself, higher than the rest of mankind in life. But yeah, blowtorch to the eye. Holy hell. I do agree. Like, how did a blowtorch pop the eyeball out like that? I just chose to believe that maybe they pulled it out with pliers or something and then were blowtorching out, something that they did off screen that we didn't see. But still, the effects were incredible, like disgusting looking, realistic looking, horrifying. So great job there. And then, Bubblegum Gang. They're the goats. First of all, Alexi and Svetlana went out like some bitches. Like, that's how you done die. You're just going to get hit by a car. You can't move out of the way or anything. But that's okay. But the Bubblegum Gang coming in and literally stomping dudes' heads in, like, that's brutal shit, man. So, yeah, here they served a point. They served a purpose. And I don't even care that they stole the cell phone at this point. They redeemed themselves.
Oh, yeah. All right, here's the ending. Paxton is at a roadblock now and exits the line as he sees the cops beating the people in front of them. The cop walks up to their car and it's empty now. Paxton and Kana make it to the train station. Paxton realizes more of the men are there after them, and Kana finally sees her own reflection and how badly damaged her face is. Paxton calls after her, but Kana jumps in front of a train, killing herself. The crowd surrounds her dead body, and Paxton manages to escape safely onto the train. Paxton hears the Dutch businessman on the train with him. When the train stops, he follows him into the bathroom, and he puts the sign on closed. Paxton sits in the stall beside him and drops the Elite Hunting business card in his stall. He reaches down to grab the card, and Paxton grabs his hand and cuts one of his fingers off. He barges into the stall and drowns him in the toilet water. He pulls his head out of the water and cuts his throat with a scalpel and puts his head back in the water and closes the door. Paxton is back on the train and it takes off, and the film ends with a title card and ending credits. All right, Brian, what do you think of the ending?
Given the alternative, I love it. I'll get to that though. But as far as the start of this, I assume that they needed some sort of logistical reason, I guess, for them to get out of the car. I'm not real sure why, but yeah, I don't like this roadblock scene. It just didn't do it for me. Like, I'm not sure why it's even there at all. They had them exit the car and immediately be at the train station anyway, so no more threats like via running or anything. Or they could have just had them pull the car up to the fucking train station, right? So I don't know. I don't even know why to even have it personally. I don't think it added any tension or anything like that. Jennifer Lim's burned face looked amazing. Again, props to the makeup crew. Jennifer is actually on record as saying that it was so realistic that when she looked at herself in the mirror, she began to cry and stated that she would understand why her character would commit suicide after seeing the effects of the torture done upon her. Shit. I know I talked that up earlier, so I won't repeat my feelings on that whole thing. But as far as the ending goes, it was satisfying. Now, is it a little bit of a plot hole having Paxton getting off the train at Vienna? Logistically, how did he cross the border from Slovakia into Austria when one of the elite hunting staff guards had kept his passport? But that aside, there was another ending here, which a few things I saw called it the director's cut, but I'm pretty sure I also read that it was the original ending that they changed after test audiences thought it sucked. But I thought it was stupid as hell, so I'm glad we got the one we got. Paxton follows the Dutch businessman off the train and watches him meet his daughter. and they go to like opposite bathrooms, and Paxton kidnaps the kid and takes her on the train, and then that's it. Like that makes no fucking sense. Like there's a million reasons why that's a bad ending and a bad choice. So I'm glad that they went with this one here. Again, very satisfying.
Yeah, I can't think of a better ending than this. I mean, the whole movie kind of has like a sense of dread. And so while I still don't quite get the whole point of these hunting and killings of these people and stuff like that. I mean, I don't necessarily think there's a point to it all, but I'll at least give them credit for ending it on some kind of revenge note. Obviously, I think adding the two fingers is a nice touch here at the end. It's a brutal kill by Paxton. That's for damn sure. Just two fingers, you bleed to death, almost, drowning him in the toilet and then, slicing his neck. I mean, that's a brutal way to go. And again, while I may not love how we get there, it's at least some kind of satisfaction for all the bad that these people did. But it's not like any of these guys have made themselves super likable. So it's just kind of this sense of just ew throughout the whole movie. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just there's no high point to me. He's no different than the people that he was kind of rallying against here by doing this. And I understand, but there's no moral compass. Not saying I wouldn't have done the same thing, but I wouldn't expect someone watching me do the same thing and think, oh, that guy's probably great. And they kind of address this in Hostel too. As much as I don't like that movie that much, they at least kind of start off with him and the guilt of the stuff that he went through, the stuff that he did. And so they at least touch on that in the sequel. But, here we just kind of get him, riding off into the sunset. So I at least like that we get to see this death. It's brutal. It's the guy that deserves to die more than anyone. So I'll give them credit for that.
Yeah, so the ending, I think this ending is pretty satisfactory. Kana's death is very sad. It's understandable, but sad. But first of all, it's frustrating also. So, my man Paxton just went out of his way, risked his life, almost got killed trying to save you, and then you're just going to jump in front of a train. But I guess he should have considered that, she probably didn't want to live looking like that the rest of her life, so I get it. But great effects on the body getting hit by the train and the body underneath the train and the blood splatter all over the other passengers there. Great effects all around throughout this movie. I do like that we get the feel-good ending with Paxton killing the Dutch businessman and escaping. Sometimes movies don't need happy endings, but this one was so dark and heavy that I feel like we needed that. So good job, Eli Roth, getting that one right. And I'll leave you guys with this. My favorite tweet from the watch-along that we did, and it rings true to this day, is, man, imagine getting drowned in your own dookie water. That is just a shitty way to go. No pun intended, or maybe pun intended, but he stuck his head in the toilet and didn't even kill him. Like, he had a few seconds with his shit water dripping in his mouth before his throat got slit. So, yeah, I'm out.
All right, let's jump into our social media real quick. We'll do Twitter first. Kevin Scanlon tweeted us saying, "Gonna watch this before I go to work today. I've seen it once, and that was around the time it was released on DVD. We'll see if it's just as fucked up as I remember, or if I'm too desensitized by horror now to even care." That's a good point, man. I think a lot of us might be at that point now. Sean Irwin tweeted us saying, "Always keep meaning to watch this, but just never got around to it. I feel like Nico."
Wow.
Man, that's funny. Shan quoted it saying, "Who doesn't remember the first time they saw this one?" And Michelle replied, "I totally remember. Saw it in the theater, and I found it so disgusting and disturbing that I wanted to leave," with a laughing emoji. Hey, I get it. This one was rough back then. All right, let's jump over to Facebook. Kevin Podoff, he commented, "More torture porn than horror. I feel like," he said, "I like the fake monsters like Freddy and Jason. We already know real monsters exist. Prison is full of them. Wasn't a fan of this one." And Michelle said she 100% agrees with him. And, I get that. I get that.
Sure. Yeah.
Reality is scarier than Freddy and Jason. I get that 100%. And Abby Renee commented, she said, "I do enjoy this film. I worked at the theater when this came out and would watch people walking out early because they couldn't handle it. I was so stoked to finally watch it and was actually a little let down due to the hype. Is this a movie you would consider to be disturbing, or was it easier to handle than you thought it would be?" I would say back then it was disturbing. Maybe first time watching it. Not
I could
now.
see it. Yeah. I mean, we've been desensitized.
Yeah, right. For sure.
You know what's crazy is I didn't even realize this, or I didn't even remember this until you just read her comment. I also worked at the movie theater when this movie came out. So that's kind of crazy to think about in retrospect. I remember she's right. People were so distraught walking out of the theater watching this. So,
Wow.
but yeah, we're desensitized. You can turn on the news and see horrible shit every day of the week. So, yeah, we're definitely desensitized though.
Oh yeah. Now let's jump over to Instagram. We got quite a bit of comments and questions on this one. Fairy Chick commented, that scene of Slacks and the Achilles, no thanks, can't handle that. Loving the movie choices this month. Big shout out to Mike. People are loving the 2000s pick, brother.
Love to fucking see it.
Wait till I ruin it next week, baby.
No, next week is a good pick, Dustin. Next
week's a good pick, brother.
Oh, thanks.
Crystal from Horror Nights In commented, question, did you have any sympathy for the main cast, or were you rooting for the bad guys? This is how I'll answer that, Crystal. Like we've all said this tonight, we weren't really invested in our three characters. You know, Ollie, Josh, and Paxton. However, they still don't deserve what's happening to them. So I definitely sympathize with them, and I can't root for these bad guys. They're pieces of shit.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Said it's like the piece of shit Olympics where our three main characters probably get a bronze or silver medal, but these guys are fucking taking home the gold. They're doing all this killing and shit.
True. There you
go. Big shout out to Mike again. Danny CNAPS commented, loving 2000s month with a hand clap emoji.
Wow.
Missy Hutchinson.
I'm talking about.
That's right. Former legendary blood donor Missy Hutchinson Wall. The scariest thing in this movie is the gang of kids.
Let's go.
Them kids are scary.
Fuck them kids.
Man, fuck them kids, man.
Justin's flip-flopping on these damn kids so much this movie.
Fuck the bubblegum gang. I'm all about bubble tape and big league chew. Fuck out of here.
That's all right, dead Mike.
It's better bubble
gum. Organic Mike.
It's better bubble gum. Fucking double bubble. Sorry ass. Anyway.
Hey, man.
All right, Dead Noise blog coming.
Put some respect on Double Bubble.
He had some with him.
For those of you that can't watch us, Dustin just pulled out some Double Bubble.
Yeah, what's funny is where I sit here, like I've got my Levi Garrett and my Double Bubble because I like to wrap my Levi Garrett in my Double Bubble. So I always have Double Bubble on deck. You put some fucking respect on it.
How fucking Tennessee are you, bro?
Bro, I told you I'm a wood chopper from way back. Don't worry about the things I do.
Oh, goddamn Tennessean. That's for damn sure.
All right, two more comments. Was not expecting the double bubble to be pulled out. All right, Dead Noise blog commented, I don't know what kind of music you're into, but one of my favorite bands, Ice Nine Kills, wrote a song about Hostel called Worst Vacation on their latest album, and it was so good. It actually made me want to watch the movie. I always avoided it because I was never into the torture porn thing from the early 2000s, but I enjoyed it, and it's all because of how great that song was. Highly recommend it. I'm not familiar with their music, but I didn't meet him, but I saw Spencer at Spookalla in Ocala a couple weekends ago. His line was nuts.
They got some great music, to be honest. I mean, it really is good.
And the last comment we have is from Chris_2020. Wasn't sure how to feel halfway through, but then at some point it clicked, and I loved how batshit crazy it got. This is like we talked in the past, where like one movie is like it's one thing, then bam, it just switches. Like kind of like From Dusk Till Dawn. It's like you get two different movies in one movie. But that's all the social media comments and questions we got. We can go ahead and jump into fun facts. I'll go ahead and just knock the one that I have out. At around 9 minutes, Quentin Tarantino appears as a shirtless German man screaming from a window. That's what I brought to the show tonight. That's my contribution. If anybody else has any, go ahead.
Hey, that's the best acting Tarantino's ever done. Oh, sorry.
Oh, my God.
Oh, come on.
God damn it, Mike.
God, man.
What? What?
In a 10th anniversary editorial on Hostel, the website Bloody Disgusting, this is weird to me, by the way, especially that Bloody Disgusting did this. They expressed parallels between the 9/11 and the movie. Paxton represents the United States pre, during, and post 9/11. He was relatively innocent and excited about the future while traveling through Europe. Then he was attacked and maimed in the factory, and in the end, he managed to emerge victorious, defeating the man responsible for his suffering, yet he still couldn't go back to how he was before. Too much had changed for him. I think that's a super stretch right there, just in my opinion. That's weird. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're gonna sprain an ACL with that reach. Um, I got a couple here. We'll go over real quick. So, I mentioned Eli Roth wrote this movie and Knock Knock. He also received a special thanks on the movie Donnie Darko. So he's no stranger to our show. He didn't do anything in the movie. Just they listed him in the credits. Special thanks. So that's pretty cool. And he also got a special thanks on a movie that I'm picking from my birthday pick this year, which blew my mind because that movie is absolute garbage. I'm sorry I'm making you guys watch it. Stay tuned to find out what it is.
Oh God.
You mentioned, Nico, that Quentin Tarantino had a little cameo in the movie. There's another tip of the cap to him in this movie. So when Pax and Josh and Oli first arrive at the Slovakian hostel, the hostel personnel are watching Pulp Fiction on TV. So that's a Tarantino movie, of course. And the last one I have is in the unrated DVD version of the film, the word fuck is spoken 128 times.
I knew you'd get that one too.
Okay, let me deal with Dustin's favorite thing, money. The budget was.
I had more of it.
Yeah, me too, brother. The budget was slightly under $5 million. It's kind of an estimated budget, but we can kind of round up or down to $5 million here. The gross worldwide is just under $82 million. So I think that's a pretty good return on investment, hence why it got 2 sequels. But yeah, I mean, when you put down $5 million and you get back $82 million, it's always going to get a sequel. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, what's crazy about the budget I read is that this movie knocked off Chronicles of Narnia at the box office, and the production budget of the first Narnia film was nearly 50 times the production budget of Hostel. So that's incredible.
Wow, I didn't know that. That is incredible. All right, let's jump into our favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating. Does anybody in particular want to go first tonight? I'm kind of curious what Dustin's going to rate it.
Yeah, let's go. I'll go ahead and knock it out. So my favorite kill, man, there's a lot to choose from, honestly, which is crazy because not a lot of the kills are on screen. I went with Kana, though, just because there's a lot of blood splatter, and I thought the effects looked great, and it's completely understandable that she jumped in front of the train. And it's also a tug at the emotions because you really felt for her. You felt for her more than you did the damn main characters in the movie, just because this poor girl didn't deserve any of this. Literally, she just had her eye pulled out and blowtorched, and she didn't want to live being as ugly. And so that was an emotional kill. So I went with that one. My least favorite kill. So I would say Svetlana and Alexei because they got hit by a car and that was it. But I couldn't go with that one because that dumbass guard got shot by his own prisoner. So that's my least favorite kill. As far as the movie, like I said, this is one of those movies that I can watch again and again and not really get tired of. I do think it has its flaws. I think the dialogue could be better. I think that the first act could have done a better job at making us care about our main characters. And I do agree, Nico. It is kind of like 2 different movies in one. The first, you get like a buddy vacation flick, and then the second half you get a gory disaster. So overall, though, I think that the movie did a lot to advance the genre, or at least the subset of the genre that can't be denied, and is obviously successful at the box office, like we said, spawned a couple of sequels. I would honestly think that this was a franchise that could deal to use a reboot or a remake of this, because I think that you let someone come in with a better grasp of how to write dialogue, like maybe a Rob Zombie or something. I think you could do some cool things with it. Oh, my bad.
Jesus Christ.
But no, I'm kidding about that. But I do think that this movie could use a reboot because this kind of shit is still scary, like in the world today. So anyway, that being said, I enjoy the movie, but it does have its flaws. So I gave it a 7.25.
Nice.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go real quick. My favorite kill is definitely Josh. I just think that Achilles heel is such a cool inventive way to kind of kill somebody off. At least I know that's not the kill, but it's the scene itself. My least favorite is everyone getting run over with a car. You chose the guard and the prisoner thing, but since you already went and did that, I'll go with the three getting run over by the car. That didn't do a whole lot for me there. But Ty on the favorite kill, just because of the Dutch businessman, that was a pretty fucking sick kill as well. So
Yeah, that's true.
okay, I think this is a good movie. I think it's rewatchable in its own way. It's not something I always go and reach for, but if it's mentioned to me and I'm in the mood for it, I think it's a pretty rewatchable film. Obviously, there's not a whole lot to invest in character wise, but it's kind of fun to go back to every now and then just to kind of remember what the movie was instead of just assuming what it was, like a lot of people like to do. I kind of touched on all the torture porn stuff, so I'll leave that in the beginning of the show. But I think the directing is fine. This, they do a good job of capturing a sense of grimy, gross sense of dread throughout the entire film. There is no let up. There's no happy moments really after they, once they get to their, actual hostel, there's really no let up after that. It's just all kind of dark and gloomy. So, all that being said, I think it's a pretty good film. It's not great, but I understand why it kind of catapulted a certain genre of film in this mid 2000s area. So I gave it a flat 7.
All right, I'll go
Nico?
next.
Okay, go ahead, man.
I'll go next. Dustin, I actually agree with you on both kills. Favorite kill, Kana. I wrote quite a few good kills in this movie, but anything with eyes is always harder to watch. And the train suicide was such a sad scene.
Yeah.
Least favorite, I agree with you 100%. The guard with the one gunshot, like, dude, you see, the guy who was supposed to do the killing is dead. I mean, come on, man.
Not to mention the fact that you walk into the room and his hand is like down by his side. The guy's sitting in the chair. You're a prisoner. His hand is by his side when he's supposed to be handcuffed. Something might be up there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, read the room. I just wrote a little paragraph, and I'm kind of just rehashing some of the things I've already said in the beginning. But this movie isn't super nostalgic for me or have any special meaning. It's just a very important 2000s film. Whether you like it or you love it, you can't deny its importance. This was a genre changer, just like Scream was about a decade earlier. I think what makes it really scary for me is it seems realistic. The effects look great and the acting is good. I think the balance between showing and not showing the gore was effective as well. My big con of this is the first half of the movie. The dialogue is just so, and I put in quotes, extra college douchey and cringy. To me, the dialogue is more painful to get through than the gore in the second half of the movie. Overall, I do like this movie and I respect what it did. Eli Roth isn't my favorite director by any means, but I respect him greatly as just a fan of horror and his respect towards the films. And I'm a big fan of his podcast too. Yeah, y'all should check that out. I can't remember the name of it, but it's just basically him and this other guy interviewing other horror people. But it's a good show. But I gave Hostel a 7.75, slightly higher than Dustin.
Okay. My favorite kill, no surprise, the bubblegum gang going Bash Brothers on the two dudes' melons. My least favorite kill, Svetlana and Alex with their accidental run over death. I thought that sucked. Um, Look, I think the movie's brilliant. I said, almost nothing but positive things about it. It's just not for me personally. I just didn't really enjoy it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, that's a weird way to put it, but now I will say it prompted me to want to watch the second one at least. And I hope we do that down the road because I think that one stinks. And no offense to our amazing freaking open done by Mr. Skylar Stone from part 3, but after 2, I'm probably not going to hit up part 3. But Stone, that may be my favorite open anyone's ever done for us on the show. And like he says in the open, it's the one thing that went straight to DVD, but it still counts.
Absolutely.
This is again a terrifying real life premise and why it's one of my worst fears. And I do think that torture porn probably has it has super drastic movies on both sides of that genre. I didn't really say anything on it earlier, but I don't mind the label personally. It's kind of like slashers and possessions, etc. It's not official genres, but it helps categorize it. And I'm a sucker for some organization. So anyway, as far as a movie, I gave it a 6.25.
Okay. That gives our composite score a 7.0625. IMDb has it at I believe, a 5.9. So they don't know
what the
to talk
fuck
about.
do they know, huh? The
Yeah.
fuck?
Brian, you said you hated Hostel 2?
I didn't like it at all, man. Now, I would rank it probably.
I
3
don't
or
think it's
4
very
if we
good.
did. I think
It's
it's
okay.
terrible.
I think it's basically just the same movie with chicks in it.
Kind of.
I think it's a dumbed down version of this movie, and I don't think they did a good job with the.
I haven't
the
seen it
writing
in a few years,
at
though,
all.
so you might be right. I haven't seen it in a good while. But the ending is painful for us men folk. Y'all know what I'm talking about if you've seen it.
Yeah. Talk about titties in this one. There's a full on fledged dick out on that one.
All right. Any more final thoughts on Hostel for a shout out our blood donors? And Dustin's going to announce his pick for next week. All right, let's shout out these blood donors. We really appreciate y'all. Times are very tough, not only economically, but shit, everything in the world right now is tough. So we appreciate all your support, not only financially, but the kind words mean a lot to us too. You're our favorite podcast. That just means a lot to us. It really re-energizes us to keep going. Camper level reoccurring, Clayton J, Nina, Michelle Mirza, Andrew Ferguson, Carrie Adams, the Horror Movie Crew podcast, Alex Seligson, Eric Doolittle, and Sean Irwin. Our camp counselor reoccurring are Hunter Nelson, Dennis Kennedy, Edwin Hernandez Gunn, Joe Swinford, Jennifer Davis from the Too Close to Home podcast, Karen, Heather Smith, and Kylie Denise from Australia. That's awesome. And we have a new legendary blood donor, one of our biggest fans, Mr. Kevin Scanlon, who has binged all of our 200 plus episodes in 5 months.
Absolutely.
That's incredible.
That is.
Dustin, go
2
ahead and
minutes
announce
at
your
a time.
pick.
Oh,
And we'll
Yeah,
close.
well-
This is what we're going to close 2000s month out with.
yeah, it's kind of crazy that we got a new blood donor from Australia because my pick takes place in Australia. I went with another movie that released while I worked at Regal Cinemas. That was my first job in high school, Regal Cinemas, and this one came out December 25th, 2005. I went with Wolf Creek. Underrated movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad. I'm excited. Let's do it.
Never seen it. I'm ready.
We'll see. I
And
didn't
shout
love
out to
my
these
first
run
watch.
times, man. Shout out these run
Yeah,
times. This movie
buddy.
tonight was an hour 34.
Yeah.
Next week's is an hour 39. Let's go.
You're right.
Not bad at all. All righty. Just want to thank our fans and listeners. Really appreciate all the support. Stay tuned for Saturday. Got something special planned. So if you're a big fan, stay tuned. Go ahead, brother Mike.
I just want to say I know this dates the episode, but our hearts are with everyone in Texas.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's heartbreaking, to say the least. I can't even express how I feel about that, honestly.
Awful.
But hug the ones you love. We'll just close with that. And y'all have a good one. Just want to remind everybody,